Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Todd Talk. I'm so glad that you're here with us today. I'm Todd Marshall Hernsberger. I'm the host of this podcast and also the founder of Leadwell Solutions, which is a coaching and consulting business for Christian leaders and Christian organizations. And I'm so thrilled to have with me a very special guest of Kenston. Welcome, Kenston. We're so glad you're here.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
For those of the people who don't know you, you are an HR professional. I guess that would be a
Yeah.
great title to give you. Would that be correct?
Yeah, you could say that. I spent a few years there. Spent a few
So,
years
so kind of tell everyone about who you are and what you
there.
do and your traveling and what you do with the companies and organizations.
Yeah, so just a little bit about myself. A little background, born and raised in a household. Parents were both teachers, pastors, educators. And so I was always around a lot of inspiration, motivation, and that impacted my life to the point where I knew I didn't want to teach students, but I wanted to work with adults and teach them. And so I got a degree from Ohio State, in corporate training and development. And so that was kind of what kicked off my career. And plus, my dad told me so many horror stories of high school. So I say, yeah, I'm really not going towards youth development, but it's funny because I do youth development now, but it's in a different way, not teaching, every day of the week, and I couldn't do that. But I love, what I do as far as training and development. But no one told me that adults would be harder than kids because
Hmm.
they're
Wow.
stuck in their ways, and that it makes it hard. But I love it. I love the thrill of being able to help people thrive. And so that's what I do on a day-to-day basis. I'm mostly just keynote speaking and professional development, leadership development, and so forth. And so, um, yeah, just having fun doing
Yeah, that's
it.
so you travel extensively across the United States where
Yes.
you're invited. And so
Yeah.
on this podcast, we talk about all things leadership, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And of course, I know you have a lot of leadership, um, strong leadership characteristics and traits. And that's the reason I wanted to have you on here because there's a lot that you could share with my listening audience to help them become better leaders. I don't want to always focus on all the negative stuff of leadership, although that is kind of where my forte is the unhealthy side of leadership.
Yeah.
But I think today, I want to at least start the conversation off of kind of going in the route of talking about servant leadership. And there are different leadership traits, leadership styles out there, and
Yeah.
servant leadership is one of them. And if we go back,
Yeah.
Kinston, when we look in the scripture, because we
Yeah.
do everything in light of the Word of God on this podcast and in the ministry that I do, Jesus himself exemplified servant leadership.
Yeah.
And so, for those people who may be just hearing about servant leadership or may not know a full understanding of it, kind of describe what is servant leadership to you?
Yeah. So, like you said, it's many styles. And, the crazy thing about servant leadership is before I left the workplace or corporate or even government, um, that was actually starting to pick up steam, servant leadership. And it's the notion of being able to serve first. And so those who are in leadership or management positions where they're able to equip their employees, their team members with the necessary tools, resources, things that they need to be successful. And by doing that, it actually makes the whole area, the whole department, the whole organization successful. But having that mindset is something that's new, even though servant leadership has been around since Jesus. Um, People are just now starting to get a hold of, like, hold on. So if I just equip my team members with the things to be successful, send them to training, send them to everything they need to do to get equipped, they'll actually be successful, and then they'll actually do an amazing job, and then it actually makes me look good too.
Oh,
Yeah,
what
it
a novel
does.
idea to where
And,
everyone wins with this leadership style.
everybody wins. Yeah.
Yeah, so I like to say that the servant leadership is kind of like a power flip, in my
Hmm.
opinion. it's
Hmm.
where, I've described this on some of the other podcasts that I spoke with other leaders about. But you know how a normal triangle of an organization where at the
Yeah.
top is the CEO, the president, the founder, the owner, whatever that is, and
Yeah.
everybody at the bottom of the pyramid is there serving the vision and the
Yeah.
mission of the one person at the top, which there's obviously some strengths to that
Yeah.
model. But with the servant leadership, it's kind of an upside down pyramid
Yeah.
where the leader is leading from the bottom. They're still
Hmm.
leading. They're not
Yeah.
serving others per se to the level of what some people may be wanting to imply, but they're
Hmm.
leading from the bottom, supporting their team,
Yeah.
helping them make their job easier. So in turn,
Yeah.
it makes our job easier as a
Yeah.
leader.
Yeah.
The focus shifts from what can my team do for me to
Hmm.
what can I do to help my team succeed.
And, and that's a whole nother mindset
Hmm.
because again, people have been stuck with the top down, do as I say, type of leadership where they're not as confident with saying, you know what, let me let you win by equipping you, but then we all win. Like
Hmm.
there's some pride, there's some ego that has to be lowered in order to even take on this leadership style because it doesn't make sense to some people who can't see that the wins of all around if everybody is doing what they do really well.
Yeah, I think humility plays a major role in the description of what a servant leader is. There,
Yeah,
like you said, many leaders have an ego, and there's some healthy ego, and there's definitely
right.
unhealthy ego.
Yeah.
But if we can put our egos aside and
Hmm.
help bless others on our team, then the
Yeah.
fact that we all win
Yeah.
is a win for the organization.
Yeah.
For some reason, there are many leaders out there who don't know or understand this principle of if I can help serve and lead my team at the same time,
Yeah.
they not only are more productive
Yeah.
in what they do,
Yeah.
they're not only succeeding themselves at their roles, but again, it,
Yeah.
it helps me at the leadership role. And it is like you said, it's an oxymoron. It's a change of
Yeah.
a mindset. And
Yeah.
there are some leaders that's going to have problems with this
Oh
way of
yeah.
leading, right?
Yeah, like I said, it's not for this style is not for everyone. Because again, they'll have to do more work to get there. They can get to it, and they can add it to their tool belt, but it'll be hard. I think about, a story that came up for me was my last manager when I worked with the city of Columbus, and she was a servant leader and she knew my skill set. She knew I was great at, you know, different sets of training, leadership training, and so forth. And she would always ask me, Kenston, is there anything that you need? And I said, well, my laptop is going crazy. Like it was going during COVID and laptops weren't working as well. There's a lot of buzzing going on my virtual platforms. And she said, okay. And she went, requested the information, requested a new laptop and so forth. She was right on top of it, got me what I need so that I can still do what I do.
Hmm.
And it doesn't have to be big acts, acts of service, but just simple ones that can make a big impact.
Hmm.
And so it's just simple things like that that leaders just have to understand that it's not, no, you're not, you know, see, I have a different frame of mindset because I want everybody that's underneath my leadership to be better than me.
Yeah.
And so you have to think
That's
about that,
that's a different mindset, isn't
that's
it?
a different mindset, and so those who are listening, are you saying that to yourself? Are you saying that you want the people that report to you or that you lead to be even more successful than you are?
So true.
Because that's a part of servant leadership. We should be, the scripture says, greater works
Absolutely.
shall we do.
Yeah,
And
Jesus
you know what
said
I
that.
mean?
Yeah.
Jesus said that. So it's like that makes sense. Like my son, even to our kids, our sons and daughters should be better than us, because we've experienced life, we've taught them. Hopefully, they listen to some of the wisdom.
Yeah.
Um, they
I think
should.
there's a healthy pride. I want to call it
Uh-huh.
pride because
Oh
pride can
yeah,
have a negative
healthy.
content, but there's a healthy pride in
There
knowing
is.
that our kids can do bigger and better things than what I am doing currently. And the same with our teams that we lead. If they are thriving and doing better than me, the average leader could get very jealous of that. But
Yeah,
in the fact that they are getting better at what they're doing because under my leadership, that is a feather in my cap in a good
yeah,
way
yeah,
that says I must be doing something right. If they're thriving,
yeah,
I have no problems. I have zero issues, Kenston, just like you.
yeah,
And if someone
yeah,
is thriving bigger and better than me and they're getting even promoted higher, I take it as credit that, hey, I've done something right to play a part in their life,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
And that's okay, right? Are you okay with that taking place, right? And that's every person has to answer that question. Are you okay with a person that may have been underneath you excelling? Say they get promoted outside the job. That's a plus for you,
Hmm.
right? They may get promoted over you. Are you okay with that?
Are you
And
okay
that,
with it? Yeah.
but yeah, but servant leadership, it really is, serve first,
Yeah. Yeah.
serve first mentality.
So
Yeah.
as you travel and speak, at HR events and organizations dealing with H&R, HR policies, procedures, and practices, and
Yeah.
you're teaching
Yeah.
and educating HR professionals, is servant leadership one of the things that you try to teach these
So
organizations? Because you probably go into organizations that really don't have healthy leadership. Would that be the case?
absolutely. So, it comes along with, four different styles of leadership. And so I really hone in on between servant leadership, organizational leadership, inclusive leadership, but then also self leadership. And I start with the self leadership first.
That's good.
Like,
Now explain that.
because
What
if
is
you don't know how to,
self-leadership?
so self leadership is knowing who you are, your skill sets, your abilities, your experiences, but the key is being able to influence yourself. So how well do you influence yourself? Because that will determine if you will be able to lead others effectively.
That's good. So it's a
So
confidence in your leadership ability,
yeah,
knowing that you can do the job successfully. Otherwise, you're not much of a leader if you
yeah.
not
If
confident.
if you can't lead yourself, how you gonna lead somebody else?
Absolutely. I think leadership begins with leading ourselves first.
Yeah,
And you're kind of hitting on a point that I've mentioned before also in other podcasts about self-awareness.
yeah.
It kind of leans toward what you're talking
Oh
about,
yes.
the fact that we as leaders have to be constantly self-aware of how we're leading.
Yeah,
What are
yeah,
we saying? How are we behaving? How are we acting? How are we, all these things, we have to be always evaluating how we're leading. Are we being successful or are we not?
yeah, yeah. How are you taking inventory of how you show up as a leader?
Hmm. Hmm.
Are you getting that necessary feedback from the people around you? Not just saying, I'm doing a good job,
Yeah,
but how are others seeing you? How are they engaging with you or not engaging with you? And again, that's a healthy space to be in because now you have feedback so that way you can grow in the direction you desire to grow if you desire to grow.
that's key is the if. Yeah.
But yeah, so that self leadership it explores, the emotions. Are you aware of your emotions? Are you aware of your energy that you bring into a space? Because all those things are impacting,
Hmm.
you know, yourself and the other people around you. Your
Yeah.
thoughts.
Now, I do see a kind of a challenging side to servant leadership. There may be a
Oh
few
yes.
points, but one of them that I see as a challenge is the fact sometimes we may become too much of a servant to where we're enabling our people to where they're not being as productive because I'm doing a lot of the work for them.
Uh,
Maybe, you know, being a strong enough leader to lead strong, but
uh,
also lead from a servant mentality. And there can be a conflict of leading
yeah,
strong
yeah,
and making decisions and still making some people underneath you unhappy, but
yeah,
yet still having a servant attitude and mindset.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, things that are coming to mind is when you're not giving them everything, or you're not doing the job for them. You're just giving them the tools or the resource. And so, for example, Um, say for example, part of my job was for a while was um, running reports for benefits, and I used Microsoft Excel. Now, I I hated it with a passion, Microsoft Excel. But the servant leader would say, you know what, I can't do your job for you. However, hey, Kenston, you need to attend this class. So that way I can get the tools, the experience needed, the skill set needed to perform my job better.
Hmm.
Not just let me hang out there and sink, but they'll actually give me, you say, hey, you need to go to this class. You need to go to this, to get equipped, then they can do their jobs effectively. And if I
Hmm.
didn't come back with that skill set, then that's another conversation. But at least they gave me the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. So when
So
you go into these organizations and you kind of start evaluating their practices and you find certain leaders that are not healthy, they're not leading well, it's
yeah,
affecting the company culture, it's affecting the team engagement and all those things. How do you deal with that? Because that can be pretty
yeah,
complex as an outsider coming in to try
yeah.
to train and teach them in a better way or better practices.
Yeah, I mean, I quickly assess. So for example, if I do go in, when I do go in and do like a overall leadership type of engagement, could be like a 2 to 3 hour session on leadership development. And I assess the room and I assess who's in there, and I'll have honest conversations while in the room. First, make sure this space is a safe space where we can have open engagement to say, hey, why isn't your team members listening to you? Why is it that you think they're not listening to you? Why is it you think that they're not, doing their work where you have to volunteer tell them what to do versus them excitedly wanting to do this
Mhm.
necessary work to be great. And you'll get the ones who will be honest, open, transparent, in session, but then the other ones will become open, honest, and transparent when we get into a one-on-one coaching session.
Mhm.
So why aren't they listening to you? Why
Yeah.
do you feel? What is your style? Like, how do you speak to them? What is your tone? And
Mhm.
once we start breaking all those things down, then they like, oh, yeah, it's my military background, or it's my, such as I was in construction for a long time. This is where my manager was, so I'm just carrying it forward. You didn't know that, notice that, so it becomes back to awareness. And
Hmm.
so once we're able to break those things down of the why it happens, then we're able to move forward again. But it comes back to if they're willing to grow,
Yeah. Yeah.
because some managers, I've been in classes where some managers they again say they'll say the exact same. I am who I am, and this is how my manager was before me, and so I'm just carrying it forward. And I said, well, how's that working for you?
Hmm. Hmm.
Is it working for you?
Yeah.
Well, no. Are you yelling at your employees still? Yes. Like, then
Yeah.
it's not working. It's not. It's
Right.
no longer working. We're in the 21st century. We shouldn't be yelling at people, adults anymore.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
those are some of those things that I say where, adults be acting like kids sometimes. But I don't get it where a manager says, I have to yell. Well, why do you have to yell?
Yeah.
They're an adult.
Yeah.
But we have some good, honest conversations. And so it just really depends on, my approach is different. We'll laugh, we'll joke, but then we'll hit it in the gut, so to speak, just so that way they can really see and gain that something needs to change, something needs to happen because you're not getting the results you desire to get. So what can we do?
So one of the things that I have done with organizations, especially in the church world, because that's where I spent most of my years of
Yeah,
working, is trying to evaluate and assess their unhealthy parts of their leadership style and having to
yeah,
talk with those leaders and even talk with the followers, the people, the staff, the
yep,
team, and say, okay, in a private, confidential, one-on-one between you and I, tell me about your boss,
yeah,
your pastor, whoever, put the title there, whoever you're serving underneath. tell me about them and be honest with me because I want to
Mm,
help fix the problem if I can. And some people are very honest, very
yeah.
open, and say, well, I don't like this about that person, or I don't like this characteristic or this quality. And then whenever I take the confidential assessment to that person and say, hey, look, here's what your team is saying about you.
Mm,
I've
yeah.
been met with some very strong resistance because they don't
Yeah.
want to hear those constructive criticisms.
Oh.
But then I've had a few that was like, you know what? I didn't realize I was doing that. And I would think that that would help them be, again, more self aware to say, okay, if that's what some of my team are saying about me, then I need to change. So, how important is it for leaders to be able to take constructive criticism and to feel what their team is saying
Yeah.
about them? Because
Yeah.
I've always been open to
Yeah.
constructive criticism as a leader,
Yeah.
been okay with it.
That and because you're a servant leader. And again, servant leadership, you desire. So you actually want regular feedback.
Hmm.
That's a part of what makes you a great leader is because I want it. I don't want to just get it at review time. I don't want to just get it annually. No, I desire it, once a month, at least once a month,
Yeah,
just to say, hey, I'm just checking in. How are you feeling? Still good? Everything's well? Okay, good.
yeah,
Right. But tell me the truth.
right.
If I'm not doing well, let me know as a leader. It's just like my wife and I, we are lead deacons at our church and elders at our church, and we have a team of 18 amazing leaders. And you know, we once we got in that role, we did check-ins, and they thought it was the best thing in the world because it hadn't been done often like we do it, and so just recently we just had a check-in for the new year, and we asked, hey, is there anything we can be better at? Is there
So
anything
good.
that we can get,
So good.
get to you to help you do what you do best?
Yeah.
And he was like, honestly, no. Like your check-ins, like you respond to texts and calls, and
Hmm.
we're good, right? And so that we like, that's a
Yeah.
win, right? But again, you have to want to desire regular feedback. If you don't desire feedback, or just simply because it hasn't been given to you, you
Mhm.
haven't had that leadership before,
Yeah.
it's gonna be weird, and you might not like it.
You know what I've done in the past, and I've done this for years, in the churches that I've pastored in and have led teams in. I would do what we call a sharpening the saw moment. And it
Yeah,
was probably a once a year thing. It's not really a performance review. That's not the purpose of this.
yeah,
And I tell my team, hey, look, I have a sharpening the saw opportunity coming up in the next few week or two. And I kind of
yeah,
prep them for it. And I let
yeah,
them know when you come into this sharpening the saw meeting with me, it is a judgment-free zone.
yeah,
Really, it's allowing you the opportunity to talk and share openly with me
yeah,
the good, the bad, and the ugly of what you're experiencing here, within this
yeah,
organization. And I
yeah,
give you full ability without any repercussions, without any negative response from me, that I want to hear what you love about working here, what's okay, and you would like to see some improvements in, and what you literally hate about working
yeah,
here. And that includes me as your leader. I
yeah.
open the door in advance and say, I want to know how you feel about me and how I'm leading.
Hmm.
And that shocks so many people that you really want to know my honest feedback and there's going to be no consequences, no repercussions, no judgment from you. And I say, absolutely not. And I have found those to be some of the most healthiest ways
Yeah.
to build relationship with my teams because they knew I was there for them. I would even get to the point and allow them, if they wanted to go there, the personal life. How's it going on the home front?
Yeah.
How's it going as parents? How's it going as being a spouse? If you're open and free and want to talk about it, because that could be affecting how you're
Mm.
working here with us. And I want to be able to be a resource for you.
No,
So,
Todd. That's Todd. No, what you just did there, that's too human. That is too human
but that's
to
what
check
servant
on
leadership is.
people's lives.
Yeah, that's what servant leadership is.
It is.
It
It is.
allows them to have the psychological safety
Hmm.
to say things that they normally wouldn't say because they'd be scared to say it for fear of repercussions.
So in the corporate world, that's called stay interviews.
Oh, they're called stay interviews.
Stay interviews. And
Okay.
so
I've
it's
never heard of
just
that.
it's just exactly how you explained it because it's getting a temperature check of how our is am I doing as your manager, but how am I doing as it relates to, how do you feel about the organization that you're with?
That's so good.
Because again, it says it lets the person know they're able to free talk about it. If there's any, if they're disgruntled, any issues, any problems, they can get it out then and there. So that way, again, the goal is for the manager who's doing it is so that way you get better as a manager and you're able to help with any questions they may have. And so again, and then it won't be a surprise if the person leaves or surprised if they stay. Um, there should be any surprises, so to speak. We know there is at times, and it's crazy, especially in the world of I would say ministry, where things happen. But for stay interviews and the things that you said, again, we shouldn't be surprised. And so one of the things I was going to say as relates to that, it left me, but those are good things that, like you said, that servant leadership. Oh, culture. And so
Mhm.
you start going a little bit towards culture, and that's a big thing that I talk about is culture drives whatever it is.
Mhm.
So if you,
Good.
so for example, you come into the workplace with your servant leadership hat, is the culture even ready for
Mhm.
that type of leadership? And again, it depends on what level of leadership you are at. If you already all the way at the top as the CEO, then that definitely can push it to way, make its way down. But if the culture is so toxic where they won't accept it, then you're gonna have some issues. And like even in those state interviews, people are not 100% honest because of whoever the leader was before them.
Mhm. They're gun
They
shy.
didn't do it. Right. And if they
Yeah.
did it, like you said, there was some type of retaliation or they weren't included in the happy hour. Something happened to say to where they said, nope, I'm not saying nothing. I know you asking me, Todd, but I can't say anything.
Yeah, so there's a trust issue there, and we certainly
Trust.
understand that. And that's part of leadership's main responsibilities is to build trust
Trust.
amongst each other so that they can trust me as a leader to let them know that I am for them
Yeah.
as someone who I'm overseeing. And
Yeah.
trust plays a part in creating a healthy work culture. So, kind of talk about this. You started the subject of healthy work, the
Trust.
culture. How
Yeah.
does that play in for leadership? How important is the leader's role in creating a healthy culture for the organization?
Like you said, trust. I mean, like we just sit there and for the rest of the time, the trust is so key. It's so huge on whether you get buy-in, on whether you do have a healthy workplace culture. If trust is not there, it's going to be incredibly tough. And so, how are you building stronger relationships? Relationships in the workplace. Yes. How are you building those? I would say soft but intentional relationships in the workplace to build trust, because that's the only way things are going to get done willingly instead of grudgingly. That's the only way that a lot of the whispers in the workplace quiet down is if that the trust factor is in place. Trust, they say trust is the currency for getting anything done
Yeah,
and
that's
done well. So if you don't have it, it can tear up a department. It can tear up a workplace. Ask me how I know. No,
yeah. Have
like,
you ever worked for an unhealthy work culture before?
bruh. So I'll give you one. I won't say any names, but it was at a point where a new president was at the helm. New president was brought into the company, and they wanted to bring their own people in, as what that happens usually happens in business. But uh, that meant the person directly above me, their job was being, going to be eliminated. And but then it starts going down, starts cascading down, and then they're the people that are new into the roles. They're looking at the people to see most loyal, who's loyal to the old group or loyal to the new group. And it's the playground of
Sure.
corporate.
Mhm.
And went into a meeting and looked around and I said, "Ooh, there's a lot of people missing." And I get one of the new leaders, they seen my facial expression. So they reached out and said, looks like you're unhappy here. I said, well, I'm glad you assumed that. But I said, I looked around the room and there's a lot of people missing. And I don't know when it's going to be my turn. And I'm
Mhm.
sure everybody else in the room is thinking the same thing of when is it going to be my turn? And so that led to a lot of toxic culture when that was taking place, and because there was never no communication. And
Mhm.
that's another thing,
Yes.
servant leaders, we communicate, right? We communicate. A good servant leader doesn't over communicate, but they communicate enough to get to not let people, just make up stories. And that's how toxic happens, is, you're not letting people make up those stories. But in that culture, I was no longer working at hard. I'll be honest, I wasn't working hard at my best,
Yeah.
because I'm worried. Like,
Ineffective,
am I about to
right?
get tapped? Am I about to get tapped on my shoulder to say, "Hey, Kenston, we no longer need your services"?
Yeah.
And that's eventually what happened, right? And so, and I was grateful because it was like it was time.
Yeah.
And I talked to so many people that have endured many even worse toxic workplace cultures, where at the end of the day, they have to say, I said, do you desire peace or the paycheck? And have those candid conversations. How much is it worth to you? I know you got a family
Mhm.
to support. How long can you endure it? Okay, what else can we be doing outside of the 9 to 5? Helping people through those moments of that. Because again, being through that, I know how to navigate it. And the time I did get let go, I was already navigating my next step.
Right. Right.
God was already setting it all up, orchestrating the next, and it all worked out because it led to me starting my own business.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Which was a good thing.
it worked out.
So you're taking your personal experiences and now you're applying them to
Oh,
educational
yeah,
arena of teaching other organizations on how to have great best practices in
yeah,
leading others successfully within
yes.
the company, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing. And as far as the one of the top pillars for me as it relates to servant leadership is the communication piece. And so a lot of my keynotes are on how to have winning conversations or necessary conversations in the workplace,
Mhm.
or in the community, wherever it is, at
Wow.
church, because I'm now taking it into ministries on, let's have winning conversations, necessary conversations, because they should be happening. We should not be avoiding each other, especially if you're in some level of leadership. You should not be avoiding conversations. Conflict um, is inevitable. It's going to happen, but how you engage with it.
Mhm.
I mean, the Bible gives us the blueprint on how to deal with conflict. So why run from it?
Well, this is definitely a topic for another podcast. And
Yeah,
now
yeah,
that
yeah.
you're going down that trail of communication and effective
Uh-huh.
communication, I want to have you back. We're coming down
Okay.
to the last
Let's
few
go.
minutes,
Yeah,
and it's not long enough, but I want to have you back and let's talk more about the
yeah,
communication aspect. So, for those of you who are following, watch for Kinston to come back and be a part of us, and we'll talk about the subject of effective communication. So,
absolutely.
tell everyone, Kinston, how can people get a hold of you? What do you have for them? You have resources, all the
Yeah,
above. How can we reach
yeah.
you?
So everything is under Live with Life, and life is spelled Lyfe. So website livewithlife.com, IG Live with Life, LinkedIn Live with Life, YouTube, Live with Life. So yeah.
Yeah. I'll put all that here in the video here at the end so people will be able to see that. And for those of you who are interested in knowing more about me and my ministry and the organization that I run called Lead Well Solutions, which again is a coaching and consulting business for Christian organizations, Christian leaders. And of course, the book that you can see behind me that I've written called The Dysfunctional Leader. I'm currently writing my second book right now on leadership. And so if you will know more information about me or any of the stuff that I do, the books that I'm writing, you can go to toddmarshallhernsberger.com. I know that's a mouthful, but just write it out, type it out, and you'll see everything about me. And so you can reach out to me there as well. So, Kenston, again, it's a privilege. It's an honor. It's great to talk with you. I'm thrilled to have you on, and I want to have you back. Will you come
Awesome.
back?
Look forward to it.
All
I'm
right.
coming back.
Coming back, brother. Coming back with more great information.
Oh
So,
yes.
thank you everyone for joining us today on today's Todd Talk. And we drop every week, or at least we try to drop every week a podcast, unless there's a special holiday. So you can also find us more on any of the social media platforms under the handle ToddTalk.Leader, and that's on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook. And my book is available on Amazon. It's available at this website here. It's available on Barnes and Noble and also Audible if you want to hear me read my book to you. So anyway, it's so good to have everyone. Thank you, everyone. Y'all have a great day. Thank you, Kenston. Be blessed, my friend.